Silly like this, and it takes many, many different disciplines and many, many people who are skilled in the areas of STEM, right? We're all about extreme STEM. Didn't that look pretty extreme? I get to do stuff like black holes. For the parents in here, I call it sexy science, black holes, right? And so I've been very fortunate. I get to travel. There I am up in Europe. I'm actually in Amsterdam. I've worked at different facilities, Langley headquarters and Goddard. I've had multiple careers that continue to work and promote my education. I've had the opportunity to work on X-ray missions like the Rossi X-ray Timing Explorer, TRACE, which looks at our sun, and then creating control algorithms for the Wilkerson map anisotropic probe, which actually looks at the temperature and changes of our universe to actually was able to confirm the Big Bang Theory. And then I'm doing here, we talked a little bit about fuel with Alyssa, and that moon, when it came by, we used it to do a gravitational assist, and I helped to create the control algorithms to get that positioning of our spacecraft and park 1.5 million kilometers away. I get to do some planning of future missions, and I've been able to win many proposals for future missions. And then I've also looked at wanting to understand the science, and I've worked at headquarters under Earth Science and want to understand the forcing functions in our environment and how that plays a role. I worked on ISAT-1, and then later, when developing the career I have with instrument management, I worked on ISAT-2. Notice here that we're all doing this, as you can see, this whole huge prediction system of our sensors, our aircraft, our in situ measurements, all back down to the user here, which is you, who get this on your PDAs, and you learn about the weather each day and things of that nature, which is all importance of what we do at our facility. I've had a career of working from $10 million instruments to $500 million instruments. And so the last instrument I worked on, which was the one I mentioned, Atlas, is now using some of the similar techniques from the Lola mission, which is actually laser orbiter altimeter. So it's actually measuring the distance from the spacecraft down to the surface of the moon, and then we created three-dimensional mappings. I've even designed missions to Mars and the James Webb Space Telescope, which is one of our big frontier missions coming up. I just gave Alyssa the little pin I gave you. That's for one of the missions I worked on, which is MMS, and it'll fly through the solar tail. You can see there some of the sun-solar wind there. We'll be measuring different measurements there. So there's the resolution, and if you guys saw that video from the very beginning, this is what we sort of had as a picture of the moon back in the early 60s, late 60s, early 70s, and this is what we have now, down to centimeters of resolution, so we can measure the surface down to centimeters. So I think you mentioned Orion, and so here is actually the future vehicle for us. I think I might have forgotten to attach the movie, but I actually had a movie which showed it testing. But the future is working with robotic assistance. We'll be able to do things that we've never been able to do before. Alyssa was also mentioning the opportunity to take fuel there, but we also have these ideas of actually creating functioning manufacturing plants that will harvest oxygen and potentially hydrogen to actually create fuel so that we can come back home, right? That was a good question I heard. So I'm now a technologist, and I help to enable science and development of cool things like advanced manufacturing, nanotechnology, and these little things right here. We now have high school students even putting satellites. These are called CubeSats, and it's like the size of a coffee cup. The larger ones, like something like this, is a 6U, this is a 1U, but we actually focus on 6Us at our facilities, and high schools and universities are focusing on these, the 1Us and 3Us, and building them now in our universities, and now a high school right in Virginia built the first one at a high school and launched them. So this is the cool stuff I get to do all the time. I'm enabling partnerships with small business, so I get the chance to have an impact on our commerce and our development of our country by getting partners from other places to work with us. Cool stuff that we spin off. You guys know about LASIK surgery? Well, that was developed through a NASA technique. And so we're benefiting our company. So I'm going to leave these guys with this these ideas of ways that you guys can compete in some of our competitions, because spinoffs are everywhere. NASA creates so much technology, and we love to see it commercialized and have impacts on our communities. Things like being able to track. Did you know we actually help track whales? So we're using the satellite techniques to track whales, and there's spots on the back there. So I'm going to ask you, what does Optimus Prime have to do with NASA? Well, guess what? Optimus Prime is one thing, right? And then he morphs into something else, right? So that's what we would like you guys to do. And we'd like you to understand our spinoffs and your chance to compete and potentially create discussions. So we actually have a competition. Now, guys, I want you to think about that for next year and enter our Optimus Prime spinoff challenge. You actually get to meet the actor who plays Optimus Prime, the winners do. So I get to do lots of fun things. You can see Mae Jemison there, an astronaut, speaking to 700 girls. I get to travel. I get to go across this globe. Here I am in South Africa at Oprah Winfrey School and speaking to women engineers in South Africa. They have a budding aerospace program as well. So do you guys like to count money? Do you like working with animals? Do you like doing stuff in the lab? Do you like building things? Do you like making noise? You just got to know when to make noise. You like working in teams? Well, maybe you guys have the knack. You think so? Maybe you might want to come work at a place like NASA. I always end my talks with saying, aim high, shoot for the moon, and even if you miss, you'll still be amongst the stars. Now, don't take it so literally, because you'll be way off, really, if you miss the moon. But I also believe in peace, and I always say peace because I believe in peace, not war, but positive energy activates continuous elevation. Thank you for having me today and listening.